Minister, this question is in relation to the use of single-use plastics and the need to reduce them, and more specifically, as a way of facilitating that, plans to provide public water fountains across the state. There are a number of local authorities who are doing this and beginning to roll them out, but I have questions in relation to, is there plans within the department to facilitate this, to help local authorities and indeed to fund local authorities to enable more of this to happen?
Thanks for this question. The Government is committed to leading the way in reducing all single-use plastics and is working both at national and European level to tackle the problem. In this regard, the Government has already agreed that government departments and bodies will no longer purchase single-use plastic cups, cutlery and straws. And it has strongly supported new EU legislation on single-use plastics, which will ban straws, cotton bud sticks made from plastic, plastic plates, cutlery, plastic coffee stirrers and plastic balloon holders, which is due to be transposed in legislation by the latest the 3rd of July 2021. It has commenced Clean Oceans Initiative and is legislating to ban microbeads, as you know. These measures are intended to bring a concentrated focus on both the reduced prevalence of single-use plastics and on quality recycling throughout all Irish organisations, be they public or private. Many organisations are taking steps to improve their resource use, and all public bodies will be submitting a report shortly on the progress that they've made as a result of the decision being made last January. My department provides direct funding for the Local Authority Prevention Network and it's managed by the Environmental Protection Agency. One of the initiatives funded was approximately $150,000 to 17 local authorities in 2018-19 to provide public drinking water fountains in public buildings, including schools and leisure centres, at events on greenways, to reduce single-use plastic consumption. The Local Authority Prevention Network will shortly publish a handbook on providing public water stations based on the experiences of local authorities to date. Further consideration of measures to tackle single-use plastics will be undertaken in the context of Ireland's Waste Action Plan, and a full public consultation on the development of that plan will be launched before the end of this year.
Yes, I welcome the Minister's response, and I think across the House there would be support for these type of very practical initiatives. There's a lot of focus very often on the big macro issues in relation to the need for more renewables and to reduce our carbon footprint in relation to carbon itself and fossil fuels, but there's also practical things that can be done. And from my experience, some local authorities on a temporary basis have provided access to the public to water due to big public outdoor events. But what we're talking about here is putting in place permanent infrastructure so that people can use reusable flasks to fill up those flasks for water rather than purchase plastic bottles in shops. I welcome the fact that the Minister said that the Local Authority Prevention Network does provide funding. Maybe he might be able to give us the figure in terms of how much was spent by local authorities so far. If he doesn't have it, that's fine. Maybe he could send it on to me in terms of by way of a note. I'd like to see how much money was made available for this purpose, how much was drawn down. I do welcome the fact that there is a handbook being made available, which I assume is for local authorities, on how to access the funding and how this can be rolled out in a coherent manner. So I welcome there is progress. And more of this, Minister, is necessary, because the more of these type of practical measures that are put in place, I think the more people will see that the state is engaging with them and providing people with alternatives in relation to reducing our carbon footprint, but also on strengthening our environmental protections as well.
I agree with you, and I think one of the reasons that we included a requirement on public bodies as well as banning the single-use plastics was we included a report by the end of this year on resource use such as water, waste, as well as energy, because I think it's really important that public bodies start to think about how they can reduce the extent to which their own staff or their clients or customers rely on plastic bottles when there could be alternatives. As far as I know, the 150,000 was entirely spent, but I'll inquire on that. But I would say that there are many other than public bodies who should be engaging in this. I would love to see more private sector organisations getting involved in this, and it is encouraging to see many supermarkets, for example, signing up for plastic pledges, and I think a very useful part of this would be as to see fountains in supermarkets and shopping centres. So there is significant scope for us to roll out as part of our waste management plan some of these ideas that I think the Deputy rightly identifies.
Thank you. Final